Hello and welcome to my channel, I Win to Lose Gaming. We have another brand new Abyss 12, so this is another brand new Abyss 12 video, woohoo! Now, I gotta be honest with you guys, this Abyss 12 took me longer than most Abyss 12s to do the 4-star only clear. And yeah, I mean, frankly, if we had 2 Xingqius or something equivalent to that, this would have been way easier. But alas, we don't, and my gaming is not that well built either. So here we go, we're using some pretty interesting teams for this Abyss 12, and you guys will see why it took me a bit longer than usual to clear this one with 4-star only characters. Now, for 12-1 and 12-2, these were my 2 team setups, with the first one being an Aoife Taser team, and we can see here I even gave him the Wandering Even Star to make things just a little bit easier. Usually I try to stick with, you know, only the free-to-play friendly 4-star options. However, in this case, we are going to use a weapon banner 4-star weapon to be specific, and then we have just Viridescent Veneer pieces with the typical a little bit of crit, mainly elemental mastery for him. He is at Constellation 6, which helps a tiny bit, but not too much, but yeah, definitely helps a bit. And yeah, those are his talents. Now we also have Beidou here, and I have to admit, I was swapping around some artifacts here and there, so the artifacts might be a little bit off for these characters, but you will generally see roughly what they, you know, pretty darn close, all things considered. But yeah, I was swapping some artifacts on and off here and there, which was a little bit awkward. And in this case, Oron's case, he's just using standard Favonius bow with the 4-piece Cinder City to buff Hydra and Electro damage. And we have Candace. Well, let me tell you, yeah, we're running low on options in terms of Hydro appliers that are 4-star characters, and frankly I cannot wait until Nod Cry 6.0. Perhaps we're finally going to get another Hydro applier that's a 4-star character that you know is off field and does a reasonable amount. But Constellation 6 Candace does indeed provide like 1 Hydro every 4.6 seconds against a target, unless it's every 2.3. I'm pretty sure it's every 4.6 seconds, but you guys can correct me if I'm wrong about this. So yeah, anyway, we have Candace as well that applies a tiny bit of Hydro while off field, and that was actually surprisingly enough for this Aoife team to succeed in 12-1 and 12-2. And the second half of 12-1 and 12-2 team is this kind of international-ish team where Xingqiu, and now Bennett, my Bennett had a better crit ratio, but I swapped some artifacts around for 12-3, so just keep that in mind that he had a bit better crit ratio than this, because I was using my Bennett to do some damage on this team. And we have Xiangling with the standard The Catch build with this stuff. And you can just see their builds really quick. We have Xingqiu. Xingqiu had the very typical Emblem of Severed Fates build with the Sacrificial Sword and the Yuge. And I should really start considering crowning my 4-star characters. That would actually help a lot with these clears. But anyway, we also have Fischl, who has, you know, typical DPS Fischl build with the 4-piece Golden Troop. And yeah, this was the team for 12-1 and 12-2. And let's also take a quick look at the teams for 12-3 specifically. So I actually went out of my way to rebuild my teams for 12-3 because of, you know, just kind of the issues that we had with the you know, just the character allocation when it comes to basically, who does Xingqiu belong to, and then hopefully the other team can pick up the slack. So we have Aoife with the same build, you know, nothing really changed with him. And we have Eonsan to provide some Nightsoul as well as to buff Fischl's damage a bit. But otherwise, you know, she's actually not that crucial to this team, but she helps a little bit. And then we have Fischl, of course, same thing, and Xingqiu didn't really change. Now, I did switch over for the second half team over to an overloaded team right here for 12-3 specifically, because yeah, team building for this was a bit awkward with 4-star only characters. But we have The Catch, and yeah, Xiangling hasn't changed, and neither has Bennett. And yeah, I realized I should have swapped him off of the Lions Roar onto the Sapwood Blade, but you know, whatever, tomatoes. And Oron's build is the same. And finally, we have Chevreuse now for overloaded team to replace Xingqiu for the second half of 12-3. Now, as usual, we'll do the 4-star only clear as well as a very quick day 1 speed-ish run. I didn't bother optimizing the speed run, so yeah, I mean, that's why it's just called a speed-ish run. And we have in the first half 75% additional Electro-Charged and Lunar-Charged damage, so absolutely massive buffs for that type of damage. And finally, in the second half, we have 75% Nightsoul aligned damage as well. So yeah, just keep these buffs in mind. Unfortunately, these buffs are a bit more universal than some of those Skirk only and Mavuika only buffs that we've been getting back in the day. But yeah, fortunately, we have some more universal buffs now. Alright, let's take a look at the 4-star only run, starting with this interesting chamber, and this one has 12 enemies total, and with 4 of those being Pokemon trainers, that means they summon their Pokemon, so you're going to have to deal with 16 total enemies for most of us. And the spawning pattern of this one is interesting. I believe it spawns in there are 2 dudes and dudettes on the field, and then there's 1 Pokemon trainer on the field. So basically, you kill 1 Pokemon trainer, a new Pokemon trainer will replace them, and a similar mentality for the dudes and dudettes. Now, because the Pokemon trainers tend to be beefier, especially with their elevated resistances while the Pokemon is out, I tended to prefer to focus the Pokemon as well as the Pokemon trainer. What you want to do is you want to beat up the Pokemon that comes out, then the Pokemon trainer will get stunned / crippled, and their resistances will be lowered. So this is why you see me typically focusing the Pokemon and trying to keep all the enemies grouped up here. Unfortunately, the crocodiles will sometimes use like bulldoze or whatever, and then they'll just run off into the distance. I guess it's not really like bulldoze. Does crocodile learn high horsepower? I don't remember, but irregardlessly, that's not a word. I just say that to bother my wife sometimes because it bothers her when people say irregardlessly. But yeah, so we are just running on copium amounts of hydro application with Candace, and we are desperately hoping that Swirl will help us keep those hydro cheeks spreaded. But yeah, anyway, next we have 12-1-2, and this bastard here basically is the reason why we can't just run a pure overloaded team for the entire 12 second half. And it is because of this fluid avatar of lava, which has 70% pyro resistance. Now I bet I do think you can probably clear this in time with overloaded, but the couple times that I tried with overloaded in this part just did not work out. And these guys teleport, they're super annoying to deal with, but basically they have permanent pyro on them. So yeah, that's why Xingqiu is absolutely decimating it. But then we have the Kongamoto. You guys know this guy. It's just a big chunky punching bag that resists Dendro, so don't bring Dendro DPSs against this thing. And it will spit out some fruits where you're going to want to hit the fruits with pyro attacks before it eats the fruits, and then when you hit them with pyro attacks like this, they will blow up, dealing damage to Kongamoto. And yeah, so otherwise, he's not going to take that additional damage. He's not going to, be stun locked here for you to wail on him. And instead, he's going to shoot giant lasers at you, which is much more problematic than, dealing free damage to him. So yeah, then he'll do this like kind of annoying spin to win attack, where typically you ideally want to like iframe it with like an elemental burst or something, and then try to, just track it down and stuff. But I guess in this case, we got pretty lucky where it looks like it really delayed its spin to win attack, so managed to get that rotation and take it out within the 3-star clear time. Now, 12-1 has 12 robots, living up to Abyss 12's standards of 12 being the theme here. And this one also spawns in waves of 3. If you know anything about robots, they tend to have elevated physical resistances, and this batch of older robots has 30 to 50% physical resistance, and all the other resistances are just 10. So in other words, I would recommend against using physical damage against these things. Not like anyone uses physical damage these days. But yeah, so regardless, now we can see though that because Taser makes a pretty decent AoE situation, and the Abyss buffs, which I forgot to mention a little bit earlier, hopefully I will edit that in prior to yapping about this, provides 75% Taser damage, of course, additive to the, I believe it's additive to the Elemental Mastery buff multiplier. So it's not like an insane amount of additional Taser damage, but certainly is helpful. No one's going to complain about that if you're going to use a Taser team for this. But then we have these 3 robots where there's a lot of RNG with their movement. Sometimes they step back, sometimes they step forward, and hopefully you get lucky. And speaking of the RNG with the previous robots, I should have been talking about that as well. But the Doritos, because they teleport backwards, typically if you kind of go to one side of the Doritos, like the left or the right side of the Doritos, that way even if the nearby Dorito teleports backwards, that way that you will be able to swing back around to it in order to keep all 3 of them grouped up. Because the worst thing that could happen is if the Doritos, split to the left and split to the right, and then you're basically screwed. But yeah, now anyway, we got pretty lucky with the grouping against these big 3 robot chicken robots. Well, I guess mini robot chicken robots. And we took them out in a reasonable amount of time. And this one, we have the Pyro Wyob manifestation. So basically, you want to dump all your bursts and stuff right before it casts its thing, because you will not be able to generate elemental energy, and therefore you'll not be able to utilize your elemental burst. In this case, we managed to squeeze out Xingqiu as well as Fischl, which definitely gives us enough firepower to take it out. Once you take it out, it gives you a bunch of energy to fill up your burst, rewarding you for that. And by the way, it's, yeah, when it goes into that whatever arena mode, I think that's what it's called, it gains a bar of white shield where, you know, I believe it's equivalent to its own full HP. However, you do get plus 120 damage bonus as well as plus 60% more damage bonus, Nightsoul damage bonus on top of that, meaning 180% Nightsoul damage bonus. So yeah, characters that rely on their elemental skills to do damage as well, or I guess basic attacks as well, do really well against that thing. And up next we have the Jade Plume Terror Shroom, where this thing just resists Dendro yet again. So this is definitely not a Dendro friendly Abyss 12 in the second half. However, basically you just hit this thing. Ideally, actually, Electro tends to be better against this thing, because then it will freak out and then it will get stunned on the ground and lose some of its resistances. But this thing is really not that threatening. It's got pretty low HP despite its elevated resistances. And we can see here that with a bit of resistance strip, we were able to take it out with the 4-star national team. So, yep. Then we have 12-3. And this is why this Abyss 12 took me longer than usual to clear, was because of 12-3. And I really needed Xingqiu against this guy as a 4-star character, because Candace was just not applying enough Hydro at all to deal with this thing. It would take nearly 45 seconds to break its hat in comparison to, well, you know, however long this run took to break its hat. Basically, we were just able to, you know, wallop this thing way faster with this team because of Xingqiu's Hydro application. Because yeah, as I mentioned, Candace does not give enough Hydro application. In an AoE situation, Candace was actually okay, because you're able to swirl the Hydro onto nearby enemies. But in a single target situation, that was absolutely not cutting it, and Xingqiu was absolutely crucial for this clear, specifically against, you know, in a 4-star situation. Can't wait to get another 4-star Hydro off-field applicator, hopefully. But, you know, I guess we're gonna have to wait and see to see if that happens. But basically, yeah, it makes the 3 hats. You got to follow the hat, whichever the real hat is, and then you beat it up. Electro-Charged deals a lot more damage against the hat that has about 40% HP, and once you break it, it will take a certain amount of damage, you know, raw true physical damage, and then after that it gets stunned for a bit where its resistance are lowered, and then you just beat it up. Hydro electro damage against that thing, because that thing has insane resistances against the other elements while it is in its hat form, whereas Hydro and Electro, it, you know, has a lot less. So okay, then we have this Pillar Robot. Thankfully it's not the secret Scam Automaton, which is atrocious to deal with 4-star only characters, but this one is not nearly as bad. It's still pretty bad. It's got 60% resistances for most of the fight, which is a crap ton of resistances, and it's basically another scam robot that you guys have to deal with. But basically, you know, here we're just going to go through multiple full rotations, and it's going to shoot up its pillars pretty soon. And basically the way that it works is you got to climb the pillars. You can actually climb the pillars without Natlin movement mechanics. There's a lot of characters that can make it up, as well as, you know, just little areas where you can just grab onto the lead. You can see here that I hopped up, and then you got to shoot those things. Auroron, of course, with his mobility. You got characters like Kachina. You got characters like probably Mavuika, Chaska, Xiao. A lot of these characters can hop up there and then destroy those little things for you. And you have Kachin can do it as well. So yeah, a lot of characters can do it. And you can also actually grab some hidden ledges. I will likely leave a link to the video that demonstrates how to do that down below, so you don't have to bring a high mobility character against this thing. But in this case I did, because it was in the second half, and I didn't want to keep retrying this one because I had already spent a bit longer than I would have liked against this thing. So yeah, once you break its 2 pillar thingies, that's a crucial mechanic to overcome. It will go into its paralyzed state, will have lower resistances, as well as, you know, just, yeah, lower resistances, but then it recovers and has elevated resistance. So it's a pretty chunky robot, all things considered. But yeah, that's the 4-star only clear. Okay, we've got a quick day 1 speed run, and unfortunately my cards today were absolutely atrocious, at the very least for speed running. Abyss 12. And we can see here that Mavuika is able to very, very easily take out, you know, just with her donuts, she's taking out this top half. And then we have a Skirk team for the second half. I didn't want to think too hard. I think Milani plus Mavuika might be better in the second half, and perhaps Skirk in the top half. Honestly, I'm not too sure, but we can just see there Skirk easily able to take out both waves. And just like the previous one, we can easily do basically the same thing with Mavuika here. Just do donuts here. And you can definitely use Mavuika's, like, you know, heavier charge attack to wipe that last wave out, but I was just short a bit of damage because unfortunately no offensive cards for 12-2 or 12-3. So it is what it is. And then for this one, just going straight for the kill with Skirk. Now I should say these enemies are pretty squishy for Constellation 6 Refinement 5 characters, and I do feel like the gap has been growing with this. But anyway, I'm going to go for the quick kill on the hat before it manages to go into its hat. So I guess we're just dealing with the cactus, but yeah, managed to pop him before he, you know, does his shenanigans. And against this guy, I believe I actually wasted some time here with Escoffier's Burst. Did not need to cast that because this was definitely massive overkill against that secret scam robot guy. Okay, let's just quickly talk about some other team compositions you can use in this Abyss 12. Now the top half doesn't have any particularly, you know, fantastic resistances for 12-1 or 12-2, but the hat is super resistant when it's in hat form. Its resistances against everything except for Hydro and Electro are super high, so you really want Hydro and Electro damage, specifically Electro-Charged and or Lunar-Charged damage, to actually break its sombrero in order to actually be able to take it out. So do keep that in mind. For the top half, basically, Hydro DPS characters like Neuvillette will do quite well as long as you bring, you know, a decent amount of Electro application with him. Or alternatively, Electro DPS characters will do quite well, where, you know, you should probably bring some Hydro application to deal with the hat. Now, that pretty much summarizes the top half. Now for the bottom half, it is not very Pyro or Dendro friendly. And yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. Since it's not super Pyro or Dendro friendly, that means, well, you can bring pretty much any other element. Like for example, in this case, I brought Skirk, who did quite well. And in terms of the Nightsoul blessing, where you get, or sorry, in terms of the Abyss Leyline Disorder blessing, you get plus 75% Nightsoul aligned damage. So in this case, Chaska can do quite well in the second half. And honestly, even though these things resist Pyro, I still think Mavuika should be able to brute force through everything except for maybe the Fluid Avatar of Lava. That is where she might struggle a little bit. So do keep that in mind. But, you know, overloaded Mavuika can probably deal with it. But anyway, yeah, so you can also, of course, run Electro DPS characters will work quite well here. Hydro DPS characters will also ironically work quite well here. And Milani is going to be actually fantastic for the second half. And Chaska is going to, as I already mentioned, should be quite good as well against all of these enemies. Do keep in mind that you do want some kind of mobility option against this thing, or you can alternatively, you know, learn how to do the little ledge grab tricks against this in order to hop up onto the pillar. And one more relevant detail about this boss is that it is racist against Natling characters. So if you smack it a bunch with Nightsoul aligned damage, it will more quickly summon its pillars, therefore giving obviously Natling characters an advantage when it comes to triggering its pillar state, where you can finally knock it down to lower its resistances. I guess besides that, let me know what you guys ended up clearing this Abyss 12 with, or not perhaps, if you guys struggled with it. Also let me know down in the comments below. I apologize for not posting for a week or so. I was just kind of taking it easy after getting a little bit burnt out with the Anefa content for Lova as well as Alice in all three of these games. So it's nice to just have a little bit of downtime to, you know, take a bit of a break. And don't worry guys, I'll be cranking out a lot more content, especially once 6.0 comes around. Oh boy, we've got a lot of stuff to cover with that. So stay tuned, subscribe if you guys enjoy Genshin Impact content, as well as some Zenless Zone and some Wuthering Waves as well. And yeah, as always, I appreciate every single one of you. This is I Went to Lose, signing out.